Anybody who's coming into this business, right? Content is king, distribution is King Kong, and data is Godzilla. Okay, but don't go only by data.
I feel the next wave of disruption is going to come in how content is produced, not in the distribution part of the world, in the creation part of the world, where anyone and everyone can become a creator and can create films from scratch sitting at home.
It's the content that travels and that gets monetized. So the OTT is democratizing the audience. You're not forcing the audience to watch it only in one specific language. You have an option to watch it in your own language, and once you watch it, the content creator obviously gets money from that. So
don't go for a big brand. Go for a good boss, because the first 2 years make your career in the creative side.
So firstly, a big thanks to everybody who has joined today, especially our three speakers. So we have Rahul, Prabhat and Mahesh from various OTT and media entertainment backgrounds, and really excited to do this session with you all. Thank you so much for your time. We have been, thinking about doing this one for quite some time, because I feel like content has really become such a, integral part of our lives on a day-to-day basis for everybody, and I think one of the main reasons for that has been the bombardment of good or sometimes even not so good content coming out from either OTT platforms or social media platforms. And we have done some of these workshops previously to help people understand how to build a career in social media and online content, but not so much in the media content or OTT content space. And that is a relatively new niche that has come up, which wasn't there, let's say, even a decade ago. So a lot of new types of people who are thinking about this career. And I'll just quickly share a bit of background about myself, and then would turn it over to the other speakers and share their background as well. For those who don't know me, my name is Arjun, and I am the founder of Pivot, which is a startup that helps people make career transition. So if you're thinking about changing not just your role, but let's say your domain or industry, trying to level up your career from IC to a manager or leadership role, any inflection point that you're thinking of for your career is something that we can help you with. And the way we do it, it involves a few different solutions. Part of them is to connect you to industry experts like the ones we have here today, Mahesh, Rahul, and Prabhat, to get their one-on-one guidance and support on what you can do better to achieve your goals in your career. Right. So we'll talk more about that during the course of the conversation, but I do want to have all our speakers get a quick chance to introduce themselves, like what you have specialized in your career, what you're doing today. So perhaps we'll get started with Rahul. So Rahul, welcome, and thanks for your time again for making this. It's really, really good to have you here. Feel free to just go ahead and share a bit about yourself.
Hi Arjun, thank you everybody, and hello everybody. Arjun said specialized. I'm far from specialized. So I had a long career, 20 plus years in media, worked with MTV, did music television, moved to sports television, worked for 10 Sports, BCCI, ESPN, did a bunch of reality shows, Roadies, Splitsvilla, Indian Idol 1, KBC, you name it. Then moved to the investment side, the P&L side, worked with Tiger, with TVF, MX. And my last job, full-time job, I was VP Hotstar, Disney Hotstar. Couple of good things in my career. Have produced a couple of Cricket World Cups on house broadcasting, one Olympic, couple of Asian Games. India's first Emmy-nominated producer. So I take great pride in saying that most Indian production companies or people buy formats like American Idol and make it into India. I'm the only one who makes shows in India and sells it to multiple countries. One of them is on Amazon India. It's called The Remix. It's a music show. Must check it out. And it's in about 15, 18 countries. So that's about me.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing that, Rahul. I think we'll go next to Mahesh. Mahesh, welcome. And again, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Arjun. Thanks for setting this up. Really happy to connect with all the folks here. I was very keen to join this because I had a varied experience profile. I was into sales. I was into government sales for the first 4 years after my MBA. Then I moved to product management. I did product management for about 4 years. Then I moved to Prime Video content acquisition. In the last 2 years, I am doing the licensing part for content acquisition. So I take care of the licensing of content for Telugu on Prime Video. So I was very keen when Arjun reached out to me that they are going to set this workshop. So I know I have seen a lot of folks who wanted to transition into different, who are actually in their transition phase, who wanted to move into this side of the world, and I wanted to give them the example of my profile itself. So it's how I moved from sales to product to licensing. It's I thought this is a right platform to express that and also share some of the insights of how we can crack this OTT game. So thank you once again, and happy to be part of this session.
Amazing, amazing. Thanks, Mahesh. And finally, we'll come to Prabhat. Prabhat, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Cool. Thank you so much, Arjun, for first of all inviting me. I'm probably like one of the least experienced folks here amongst all the speakers with around 5 years of experience in the media and entertainment sector. Rahul has probably worked longer in this sector than I've been alive. So just there's so much to learn from him, right?
It's always
But
good to
I'm
have
like,
varied experienced speakers, right, on the
right,
panel. Yeah.
right.
That
Yeah.
makes me old.
No, but you're younger at heart than I am. So
Uh,
yeah, but I've always been passionate about media and entertainment, especially storytelling, ever since my college days. So when I was at BITS, I was always involved in theater, and I would always look at, which play to make, what play to make. And that sort of got me into this media and entertainment space. And I took a leap of faith in college. Most of the BITS crowd, they typically go into consulting, coding, product management, those sort of roles, right? But I took a leap of faith and I interned with TVF for a while, the Viral Fever, the same place where Rahul was at. We had a brief interaction also during that period of time, and I got to know about how brilliant web series are created and marketed. Like that 2 month internship gave me a glimpse into this world of media and entertainment, and I knew that I can build a career in this direction. Then I got the opportunity to work at Viacom 18 at Voot, which was Viacom 18's OTT platform back then. Now they've transitioned to JioCinema. Over there, I worked across multiple roles. It was president's office at the start, where I would get varied problem statements like increasing Marathi consumption on Voot or improving revenue strategy for Voot. And towards the latter half at Voot, I worked at product management for a while, where I was responsible for new user onboarding, how their install to watching flow is, how can we optimize that. But slowly over the period of time, I realized my passion lies a little bit more towards content strategy. So when I got the opportunity to work with Rahul and all over again at Disney Plus Hotstar, I took it where we acquired Korean content pieces, localized it for India, and that did really well. And towards the later half at Disney Plus Hotstar itself, I've somehow had these mini role transitions at every place I go. It just happens to me. I worked at international expansion where we worked on taking Indian content to territories outside of India, like Middle East, North Africa, Israel, all of these territories, as well as a few strategic projects. And towards late of 2023, 2024, like Gen AI was booming, right? Like you could see that it's going to play a pivotal role in the way content is being created. So I got the opportunity to work to join Dashtun, where I'm currently at. We make comics using Gen AI, and it's again in the media space, but it's disrupting the way content is being produced. So over there, I'm responsible for acquiring content, working with American authors to adapt their novels into web comics.
Oh, that's so interesting. Amazing. I'm sure we'll get into more of that in the next few minutes. But thanks everyone for sharing your background. I hope it was helpful for people to understand what kind of journeys these speakers have had. So let's get started. Let's dive in. And just so you know, we'll keep the structure as follows. We'll start off by discussing some of the key trends and key pointers with regard to how people should be thinking about building their careers in this particular space. But then I think we'll open it up for Q&A also at a later stage. We have already had a couple of questions asked prior to the workshop, prior to the session as well. So we'll be covering those during the course of the session. But the first thing that I want to just get started with and sort of give a lay of the land for people who might not be initiated into this OTT and media entertainment spaces. For people who are, let's say, not part of this particular field, and Rahul, perhaps we can start with you if that's okay, given you've had the most experience also in the field. What are some of the main roles that an outsider from this industry can think about considering as a career option? So let's say I'm not a media entertainment professional. I'm thinking about transitioning into this. Do I need to have a specific, core skill set or core kind of experience to be able to make that jump? But more importantly, what kind of roles can I think about, pursuing in this space, which are up and coming and can give me a, good career boost, in my field of work. So yeah, we'll start off with you, Rahul.
Okay, thanks, Arjun. So, to give you the lay of the land, you call it a OTT or you call it a television business, which is, it's similar, but it's not same, right? So, I'll break it down as I speak. So, in the media entertainment, let's call it media entertainment. Let's not keep films in the business because films is very different animal. So, let's keep films away from this. So, this is what a viewing pattern content business I'm talking about, OTT or tele. Uh, so, the only skill set that you need to have, if you want to be there's only one skill set that you need to develop is a creative skill. Okay, that takes time, which is either writing, directing, or figuring out what content will work for you and so on and so forth. The pulse that takes a little bit of time. But if you're from sales, hey, you're selling soaps at Levers, you're selling content here to the brand. It's the same logic. You're marketing shampoo. Today, the ads of TVCs of most products are so creatively done. It's the same thing. You're either marketing the brand that you're working for, be it Amazon, Netflix, Hotstar, Geo, whatever, or marketing a show. So the logic remains the same, right? The other very interesting part, which I think it's opening up for the wider audience to come into it, is the product space. So in the product space, you don't have to have a media skill set to win product, because the logic of the product remains same in any product. The only thing that you need to add it to why this consumer will come onto your app, not download. Download is the easy part. How do you make them stay on your app is the challenging part. So product, marketing, sales. I'm just giving you some broad views, right? So those roles are easily, you can transition from any which is non-media businesses into this, which is fits very nicely. And also, I think it's a very good opportunity for people who are not from media to do this, because once you do media for too long, then you get stuck in a situation ki boss ye aisa hi hota hai. This is how it is. When you come with a fresh perspective, it changes in a big way. If you look at little scientifically, if you look at the CEO of Hotstar or the CEO of Geo, they are not primarily from media backgrounds. They are around media, but they are not media background people.
Right.
So what it does is it just brings a fresh perspective, because even in creative, what happens is no matter how creative you are, you can only tell 7 stories in your life. There are only versions of that you keep telling other people, right? So you need to have a newer point of view, newer perspective for the audience to engage more. So these are, I think, then there is obviously your AI/ML roles are there. The strategic roles are there, which can come straight from consulting guys, can come and do it.
Yeah.
Obviously, M&A roles are there. So those are the roles which are, anyways, it's a book corporate role. HR, obviously, HR fits in beautifully into anything. So these are the things, except, I repeat, except if you want to be a creative director, producer, writer, or cameraman, or any on the delivery side of the content, that's where you need to develop a skill.
Right.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. So I think there's a mix of options, it sounds like, some which are transferable from different industries, like you said, marketing, product, HR, some of the other broader functions which are there in almost every industry out there. And then there are specific industry related careers like the ones that you're talking about, more of the creative roles, it sounds like, where you're creating the content. that requires more specialized skill set. Makes a lot of sense. So want to bring in the other speakers into the conversation as well. And Mahesh, what I wanted to understand from you is, given your background and where you're currently working, there's a lot of new things that are happening almost every year or maybe even every month, on the content front. So what are some of the core emerging trends that you are seeing in your space, which you feel are impacting not just the larger business trends, but people's way of thinking about their careers in this particular space, in the OTT or the media space? Has there been any change or any new evolution in how people are perceiving they should be advancing their careers or changing their roles or paths in certain manner to continue to future-proof themselves or optimize their professional opportunities for the next phase of their career?
Yeah, definitely. See, uh, I would start off by saying that content curation is only one aspect of the skill set that you need to do in an OTT on the OTT side. There are many other aspects that you need to develop over a period of time. For example, whenever you curate something, right, for a platform, for the intent is to engage the customers on the platform for a longer duration. So there are two sets of parameters that we look at when we curate something new for our customers. One, do we get new customers on the service? Second, out of the existing customers, how many customers can get engaged on that content? So curating the content is only one aspect. There are many other aspects that we look at it, whether the key important aspect is financial aspect. Does it make sense for us to invest in this particular content type? Is it something that we are seeing in the market? Is there a appetite for that content? So we as Amazon had an opportunity to start off and test a lot of structures and formats. We did launch movies directly on service without going for theatrical. We did shows, and we are still doing shows which are unscripted, which are tapping into the unknown charters and territories. So our intent is to test and learn on all of these models and see if it makes sense for us to keep on investing. And at the end of the day, there should be an appetite or demand from the customer world whether this content works or not works. So there are many aspects to answer your question. One, curation of the content, that's a key primary skill set that you need to do. And apart from that, you need to have secondary skill sets like financial analysis, like data analysis. Primarily, we rely too much on data. I mean, our decisions are based on data. We wanted to see what kind of feedback we are getting from the customer, be it qualitative feedback or be it quantitative feedback. What's the signals that we see from these data points? Is it giving us the right information that we need to double our investments, or we need to work out from such a strategy? So that is the third skill set that I would say, making sure you read the data properly and analyze it to make sure your decisions are backed with the right set of data. And the last one, which again, as a company we have, is take risk. We take risk, we launch something, we try and test it out, we see if whether it's working or not, and then decide faster. Like, you can't keep on investing when you know that the content may fire or may not fire. So we test, we learn especially in this world, because the creative cycle is too long, we have to move fast. So agility is something that you will develop over a period of time. So these are all soft skills that will help the curation process much more sharper, that will help the success of whatever you are creating in a much confident, or in a much I would say defined manner.
Like a validated manner. Yeah, no, makes
Yeah.
sense. Makes sense. No, I think those are very interesting things that you're talking about. And, I see a lot of parallels in this industry versus like a typical startup, right? Like using data and validating your decisions through experimentation and, testing things out. A lot of things that I would typically see in the, general startup ecosystem as well. Prabhat, so given that, you're the youngest out of all the speakers, let's look ahead in this industry with you, right? So let's talk about the fact that you have recently also transitioned to an AI startup that's helping generate, I think you said, comic content. So what kind of, recent technological advancements, I mean, whether we talk about AI or perhaps, something else as well AR, VR, and so many other new trends that are taking shape in the content world. What are the main ones that you think are really driving the future of content here, and why so?
Yeah. Okay, that's a very interesting question. Like it's really introspective as well. But if you like to look into the future, just let's take a look at our past, how it has been,
Sure.
how it has transitioned from radio, which was an audio-only platform, to TV, uh, a video audio platform, and to OTT, which is a video on-demand platform. So all of these were disruptions primarily in the distribution space, like the way content is being distributed, especially from TV to OTT, right? But I feel the next wave of disruption is going to come in how content is produced. Whether by content is being produced, simply how content is being created. First, it's like the power lies with the Disneys or the HBOs of the world, right? Where they had because it's a capital intensive business, they had to put up all the camera setup, all of that, hire actors, and it's a very expensive process, right? Video creation itself. But I feel the next disruption phase is going to happen in this part of the world, not in the distribution part of the world, in the creation part of the world, where anyone and everyone can become a creator and can create films from scratch sitting at home, right? Like if you look at AI tools like Runway, or if you look at the way Canva is growing, or the way Mid Journey is, people are able to create 1 minute short films sitting at home, and it's just been a year and a half for AI. So I feel the biggest disruption will come here into how videos are created, and yeah, majorly that. And even with video, like you see all of these music apps as well. Earlier, you had to be a hardcore musician. You had to understand how drums work, how guitars work, how pianos work, how to put them all together. But even that is being disrupted right now. So it's more of how can we disrupt the content creation process itself.
I just want to add something, Arjun.
Sure.
Can I add?
Yes. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So anybody who's coming into this business, right? Content is king, distribution is King Kong, and data is Godzilla. Okay. But don't go only by data, right? Because data only gives you direction. You have to use your creative ability. I mean, I partly agree with Prabhat, but I'll give you a specific example and you'll understand where I'm coming from. So if you see an IPL match, it is done with 40 cameras, the works, the Hawkeye and the Spideys of the world, and the different gadgets. Now, in Ranji Trophy, we started doing self productions, 6 camera, 3-man operations. It looks so bad. So the same consumer is not watching they can say, if they put the same players. I'll give you another example. ISL and I-League, same players play.
Right.
But more people watch ISL than I-League because of production quality. In Prabhat's, in the short form world, which is the quick consumption world, the Insta world, or the YouTube Shorts world, or the TikTok of the world, that world, this self-creating is working very well. I'll give you another example which is working very well. So if you look at highlights today, cricket highlights, the moment the match finishes, earlier it was cut on an FCP or a Premiere Pro machine, like offline machine. Now, the machine has learned there's no human intervention. It automatically cuts a 13-minute highlight, you just put a time, and it gives you in 48 seconds exactly after the match finishes. Right. So there are advantages of this thing, but the creative instinct will always remain in. If you do an OTT content, the short films don't work. I mean, Mahesh is there to second me on that, and so is Prabhat. Short films doesn't work in our part of the world. It works in the West, but doesn't work here. So in our part of the world, it's mostly mid-form or long form, as we call it. For that, I would say use data to get direction, but don't let data drive your content decision.
Got it. No, I think that's an interesting perspective. I think there is a nuance that you brought into the discussion here, Rahul, that, while data is important, I think creative instincts and capabilities, given the nature of this field, will always remain very, very critical. But one thing that you have just touched upon, and I think it will have an impact on how people strategize their careers in this field, is for, let's say, a person who's thinking about building a career in content, OTT definitely presents an opportunity, but so does social media, right? And that's where we are seeing the short form content really taking over compared to the long form content. And do you see that that's something that will get integrated into OTT at any point, or do you think that that kind of content will always remain its own separate beast compared to the typical media entertainment companies?
So it's a very interesting question. So while we were in Disney, we were trying to, because we saw TikTok was eating, or YouTube Shorts was eating into a lot of our consumers, right?
Right.
So they were eating into our consumer base, our stickiness, because on Insta, on short form, it is session time is what you count it on, right? How many times you go on Insta in each session, how much time you spend on that session. That's how it's the metric is driven. So we thought, why don't we get a pipe? When a pipe, what I mean by a pipe is like you get a TikTok pipe and put it onto that. But the moment it's a government law, the moment it's a UGC, user generated content, it cannot be on an OTT.
Right.
As per law of India, you cannot do it. So what do you do then? Then you go to the Netflix logic. What Netflix does is the best of shorts or romance and all that, right? It is working, but not working at that level, because the moment you have the bell curve will only come when you have that consumer putting so much content that you're going crazy watching it, right? That's your consumption pattern, so to speak. Because when you're at night or at lunch break at work, most people, 15 minutes you think you'll watch 5 minutes of Insta, you spend 30 to 40 minutes. So it's a consumption pattern that they're driving, right?
Right.
So they will remain as two separate businesses unless the law changes, it becomes one. In China, it works beautifully. In China, the law allows you to have a short form, long form, mid form, YouTube within the app. So it's the law. In India, you don't have a super app. In China, you have super apps.
Correct.
So that's the difference. See, also remember now, you have the best content available on any platform. How do you put it out to the audience? The audience doesn't get to see it, right? So it's the AI ML which will throw it at what the consumer is watching. So according to me, Netflix is the sharpest AI ML in the world. It throws what you want to watch at the right thing, right? And it is so well trained, or it's so sharp, so to speak. So that will take its time, but for now, India will have a separate short form platforms and long form platforms.
So if somebody is thinking about a career in this space, it sounds like they will have to make a decision or make a choice between the two. They can't think necessarily of having simultaneous careers in both of these spaces. And I feel like, Prabhat, given your recent career decision, it sounds like at least you're thinking there is more democratization, there is more career advancement opportunities happening in the short form content side.
Short form space.
Yeah.
Right. In the short form space, there are like multiple roles, right? Like Instagram doesn't just work because people are putting content. There's actually a huge machinery behind what content do we get people to put on. Even on TikTok, TikTok just didn't start this way. There were like 5,000, 10,000 community managers requesting people to put up certain types of trends, certain types of videos each and every day. And that's how like you have these various communities within TikTok, within BookTok, like BookTok within TikTok, right? So those sort of roles also exist. But that being said, it's not as if this traditional media, which is long form, curated PGC content, very high production value, is better or worse than short form. And I feel maybe, let's say, as a professional, as a 25-year-old, you enter the short form space, learn about how short form content is being created, how that is marketed, how that works on social media. In the future, since you have the basic crux, right? Like the basic concept that, okay, this is the content that's working. These are the tropes that tend to work. You can transition to long form. Similar with long form. If you started off with long form, you like understood PGC, the professionally generated content, how that's made. You can transition to UGC. Like I've seen many folks transition from like a Viacom or a Hotstar to Facebook or Google. working, and vice versa,
So how
right?
should one think about which transition to adopt? So like again, let's say I am somebody who is making this decision for the first time to get into
Yeah,
a content-oriented role within the creative space, whether it's short form or long form. I mean, we have seen more people adopt the short form because there is low entry barriers, right?
right.
You just create your account, you get a tripod stand, you start shooting yourself and put it out there, right? As opposed to obviously long form, there's much more bells and whistles that are necessary. So, I mean, do you feel like for an average, job seeker or for an average professional to take the short form to long form path makes more sense, or do you see that, changing or some other view that you have on that?
No, I feel both paths are fine, but it's just that the opportunities are so less in long form, right? Like in
Yeah,
India itself, how many media and entertainment companies are there? Like you can count them on your fingers. It's just Amazon Prime Video, Netflix, Disney Plus Hotstar, and Jio Cinema, which would be merged. And
right.
in these, the content-driven roles would be very few. Like if I count the overall content or content strategy roles,
Yeah,
probably 100, 200 in India.
mm,
Versus you look at startups in the creator economy space.
right.
There you can easily start off your career in that direction and
Mm.
then move on to long form after understanding some basics over here.
And
It's an easier switch that way.
I would add one bit, uh, the short form world, I mean, to be honest, I'm way older than Prabhat, so I'll tell you just, and you also called me old. So it's a, so no, jokes aside, uh, the short form world is a more of a young man's play because I'll tell you why. If you're in the media industry for long, you get stuck to certain things. In the short form, I'll give you another example, another film example. You guys will understand it in one line. Anurag Kashyap, when he doesn't have money, he makes good films. He made only one big film called Bombay Velvet, and you know what it happened, right? So a lot of people can't deal with scale. A lot of people work in constrained budgets, but their best come down on that. And I think
Yeah.
if you're a younger person, you should go the short form to long form route. If you're a little mid or an older person, well, hey, whatever opportunity you get, you should jump at it. That's my. There's
Rahul, that's
no.
such a good thing. It lines up very well with something I read about the new Deadpool movie that has come out. So, Ryan Reynolds actually talked exactly what he just said. He said in the creative field, what we identified after doing a lot of experimentation, and especially in the Marvel and superhero, which has got the most amount of capital available to produce the best movies ever. But he said we decided to keep it frugal, our overall budget, because necessity is the mother of invention. And we realized that when it comes to creative content, you don't always need the biggest budgets. You just need the best minds to work their behinds off and come up with the best ideas possible to execute from a content perspective. So I think it lines up really well with what we have heard in the West as well. Mahesh, I know, we haven't gotten you into this conversation. So I wanted to touch upon something that we frequently get asked about in the content space, whether it's short form or long form, is the whole monetization aspect, right? So a lot of people uh, are just getting into content for the first time or thinking about, either creating their own short form content or long form content, but they are not very clear about the monetization opportunities that exist. And I think some of the models are also evolving pretty rapidly in this space, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
can you maybe, help us understand just the basics around that as to how can a person think about, especially if they are in a content oriented role, how can they think about monetizing content in today's world?
Definitely. See, there are many ways to monetize the content. You can exploit the content on multiple platforms. You can exploit the content on multiple territories. There are obviously some of the once you get used to a one type of monetization, the avenues will open up. Again, monetization depends on a lot of parameters. As I said, it's the content that travels and that gets monetized. So I have seen a lot of, at least when we meet a lot of creators as part of our role, we understand that the novelty of the content is what it gets monetized. So there are I mean, there are multiple ways to monetize it. You need not even uh, ring fence your monetization to one set of architecture or one set of framework. We have for something on OTT only, we have royalty basis monetization, we have per view basis monetization, we have territory specific monetization, so on and so forth. So I would index high on the novelty of the content. But yes, monetization is something that's getting started. People are able to understand the value that the content is going to generate, especially on right now. We have a lot of platforms that you can put your content and you can get it monetized. So if the content is really good and if it travels, there are opportunities for you to localize it into different languages. Use that as one of the, because once you localize it, you can target a bigger customer segment, you can target a wider segment group, then that is something, an option for you to monetize. So we see, for example, in movies, we see a lot of movies getting dubbed in other languages, especially for OTT, right? One, because the OTT is democratizing the audience. You are not forcing the audience to watch it only in one specific language. You have an option to watch it in your own language. And once you watch it, the content creator obviously gets money from that. So there are obviously multiple ways to monetize it. And these are some of the things that I can think at the top of my mind.
Got it. All
I'll
right.
just add two bits for the monetization bit, Arjun, just to give the lay of the land to people who are not from the business. When you go to any OTT or any television channel in India specifically, you go with an idea, they approve it, they own all rights. You are just a vendor. So you don't have the skin in the game. Unlike it's in the West, you don't own the IP. Like the guys who made Friends, they monetize that they can live off that Friends one that 10 seasons of for their life. In India, it's a 7.5% margin business, right?
Wow.
And then what happens is, um, and then and then unlike TVF makes it and then says, okay, I'll sell it at this rate for so many years. They're licensing it for so many years. So a lot of companies don't have the wherewithal or the financial bandwidth or the capital to make shows of that level. So I would request all OTTs to look at a model where the creator gets like a book royalty. You get 2%, 5% on every monetization that you're making. So no OTT or no television channel in India gives you IP at all. This is no, karna hi nahi hai. That's a big challenge for creators.
Got it. Yeah, that does. I mean, that's a drastically different model compared to the West, it sounds like, and probably has a big, impact on people's kind of monetization, but overall career opportunities as well in the space.
Correct.
Prabhat, I wanted to understand from your perspective, how does monetization work for short form content, right? So I think a lot of the things that we are talking about are more in the OTT space. But given, you're, now working at this new startup, what are some of the things that you are most bullish on for the next wave of creators to come into this industry because of, the new monetization opportunities that they're going to be able to capitalize on?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Dashtun also makes long form content only. We are not yet in
Oh,
the short
okay.
form creator economy led
Got
space.
it.
Although,
Got
if
it.
you are a budding comic creator enthusiast, you can try out the tool. But
Okay.
yeah, coming to like the first part, right? Like, how
Yeah.
can creators today earn money? But then it becomes like a discussion on career in social media or career in short form creation and how you can build that and how you can monetize that. So the best way in India today, I feel, is to go on YouTube and build those 15, 20, or 30-minute episodes or start a podcast of your own. And then just by monetizing that content, YouTube gives you 55-45 split. I think they keep 55 and you'll get 45% of whatever ad revenues they get. And some of the top creators on YouTube, I think they earn towards the tune of 8 to 10 CR per year. But those are the top most creators, and they majorly make 40 to 50% of their revenues from YouTube ad revenues. That's one source of revenue. Let's say you start off as a YouTube creator. The other source of revenue, major source of revenue, would be the brand deals that you get. You'll be able to monetize it from, let's say, the way Akshat Srivastava does it, right? He makes 15, 20-minute YouTube videos and then he'll plug in a brand like Vested or Zerodha who would have paid him some sum of money. And once you're like in the social media space, like once you have these two avenues sorted, once you've built that brand, then you can charge for other things as well. For example, speaker, like let's say speaker visits or something. Just going, speaking at a workshop even. People charge for that, right? So
Mm.
yeah, those kind of avenues open up for you as a short form or a UGC creator. Yeah.
Okay. Anything you wanted to share on the long form side, since I was, I guess, mistaken about the nature of content your startup is creating, but
Yeah.
anything else that you want to add on that front?
Right. No, on the long form side, the way we make money, or the way any long form media and entertainment business would make money, like Netflix, would be to create content at a certain cost,
Yeah.
try to market it at a reasonable cost, and then try to earn that revenue either via subscriptions or via ads. Majorly, these two are the models, right? Like either you ask the consumer to pay you directly with their money, which is a
Mhm.
subscription model, or it could even be a transactions model, like microtransactions, where
Right.
you pay for, let's say, instead of paying for a buffet on Netflix, the entire thing, you say, I'll pay for each and every episode of Friends, and I'll pay lesser money for it. I'll
Right.
only watch Friends though, right? The subscription and reward model where the consumer is paying you directly with their money, or the consumer says, I will pay you with my time. I'll watch the content, but you can show me ads. I'll give my time to that ads, and then you're eventually making money of those ads for your business. Which
Right.
traditionally in media and entertainment, like long form, especially PGC, I feel just these two are the main monetization sources.
Yeah, and also while I was at MX, we launched during that COVID period, and TikTok got banned. We launched something called MX Takatak, which was uh, pardon my French, it
Can't
was a
relate.
rip-off of TikTok. Similar logo, similar name, everything. Uh, so what it we did a little survey research because it was a fairly large research team to figure out why people are watching what they're watching in the short form world. The most of them wanted to be the short form, the Bharat creators. I'm not talking about the India creators. I'm talking about the Amit Badanas of the world, right? That space. They wanted to. This was the shortcut to fame, and then they wanted to get into movies very quickly.
Hmm.
So this is the shortcut to becoming heroes or movie stars or so in whatever moment. I'll give you an example. Bhuvan Bam is arguably the biggest creator in this country. He's made one show for Hotstar. He's made more money on that than in his entire career.
Hmm.
So you understand. So the end goal for everybody is that big dollar riding there.
Right.
Unfortunately, in India, there is money in Bharat, but it is not if, it is when. It'll come. If you're ready to take that dollar, you have to be ready to take that dollar. So the India business, I think, is a little bit on the stagnant side. The Bharat business is still there.
Got it. All right. Okay, so Rahul, actually, there's one question that I wanted to ask you, and it's something that we have gotten from multiple people who have worked with us. Is skill acquisition, right? So we have talked about what are some of the skills that are very important, and you talked about those transferable skills from different domains and the specialized skills from a creative perspective. Now, let's say I'm talking not just about what skills are important, but how to actually acquire them, strengthen them, and make sure that you continue to keep your skills polished as a early career professional, somebody in the 25 to 35-year-old kind of a range. So what are some of the things that a person can do? Whether it's you think like some sort of courses or just on the job learning, what are some of the things that people should do given how quickly skills and trends are evolving in this space?
So now it's a very interesting question you asked. There are two parts to this, right? Part one, if you're the product side, you have to be trained. You have
Mhm.
to have that skill set of the product management and the skill sets, engineers, and so on and so forth. But that is a skill that you have to have, otherwise you can't learn it on the job.
Mhm.
On the creative side, if you're a first-time job seeker, right, or a young job seeker, don't go for a big brand. Go for a good boss. Because the first 2 years make your career in the creative side. It's a brand who never makes your career. It's the first boss who teaches you the basics. If you're the creative side, because if you go to FTI, you go to NSD, you go to any film school in the world, the best, New York,
Right.
NYU, wherever, you come back and you start from scratch because it's your own learning. It's a very self creating process, right? It's unfortunately it is not 2 plus 2 is 4. It's sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 5. So the first, if you're taking the first job or the first second job in that space, take a good boss. Don't go to a big company because you'll be a very minuscule part of the large scheme of things. You get your hands dirty, do multiple things because at the first time you don't know what you're good at. You have no idea. You have to try
Right.
2, 3 things, figure out, put heart and soul into it, give it a couple of years, and then it'll your passion will get navigated by itself. You don't need somebody to guide you after that. But have a good boss. That's my first advice to anybody.
Got it. No, I think that's great. That's a great advice. And I think in terms of skill acquisition, I guess you get to learn directly from others who have the time, bandwidth, and the kind of inclination to guide others, right? Because if you don't have a good manager, you don't have a good team, and it's very self-driven, and you don't always get the right insights on your own just by Googling things, right? You need somebody to sometimes show you the way. No, makes sense. Makes sense. I'll move on to the next question. We have quite a few questions coming up here. Mahesh, wanted to actually ask you this question first, even though I apologize, Digant has asked this question. I apologize, Digant, you've directed it to Prabhat, but I have an inclination that Mahesh will also have a good idea about this, and then we can definitely loop in Prabhat into the conversation. So, Mahesh, the question is, which way is better for new filmmakers to enter OTT by getting it commissioned from OTTs, like platform studio, or take the risk and go for more of an acquisition model? So, any thoughts
Yeah.
on this, given that you focus on content acquisition primarily?
So that depends on the risk appetite. That depends on what kind of investment you are looking at. If it's an investment that you are willing to take that risk, I would suggest go ahead, believe in your content, believe in your story, and then take the risk. The advantage you get of having commission by OTT is that at least financially you are secure. You have the cash flow issue resolved because all the OTT players at least have that ability to support the production schedule, support the post, and support the localization, whatever we needed for the show to come out. So there are tranches, or there are payment milestones that go in accordance to the shoot schedule and all, which will ultimately help the producer or the creator to focus more on content generation rather than any other aspect of it. But again, as I said, it's all about what's the risk appetite you have, what's the investment that you are looking at. Basis that you have to take that judgmental call. It's a high judgmental call. Most of the times I see, the ratio of pitches that we get, and the ratio and to compare to the pitches that get shortlisted, from there till the time it goes into production, and we see a lot of shows getting cancelled even in production. So by the time it launches on service, there is always that risk. So uh, that's a long production cycle, and there are multiple parameters that OTT will also evaluate at each and every phase of the life cycle of the show before getting it live on the service. So I think just to summarize the answer, I would say, what is your risk appetite? What is the investment you are looking at? Whether you believe in the content or not. If you take these three parameters, give equal weightage to all of this, and then the answer is in front of you.
That's a very structured way of thinking, and I think intuitively makes a lot of sense. Prabhat, do you have any other thoughts on this, given that the question was actually directed for you?
No, actually, Mahesh covered it quite beautifully. It just one thing to add over there is that what is your end goal in mind? If your end goal is distribution, right? Like you want to get your content to the maximum eyeballs out there, then the best way to do it would be to partner with an OTT platform because they have the distribution in the first place. But if your
Mhm.
end goal is to keep it for yourself, maybe lesser fewer people watch it, you can invest lesser money in it, and you're okay with like not thousands of people watching it, then maybe you create it on your own, post it on your own YouTube channel and see where it takes you from there.
Yeah.
Just depends on what you have in mind, like as the end goal.
Got it. Got it. All right. And the next one, the next question that we have is something I would say probably almost everybody who we deal with has thought about or asked this in some form or fashion. So let's take an example. Let's say I am somebody, in my late 20s, early 30s. I've had a career in, let's say, marketing or general communications, that kind of a career. And now I'm thinking about switching to content space, or let's say OTT, media entertainment, the Primes and the Netflixes and Disneys of the world. So what are some of the most critical steps? I'm sure we have covered them in bits and pieces throughout this conversation, but now let's take this question head on. And Prabhat, actually, we'll start off with you, and then we'll rope in Rahul and Mahesh as well, given that you have most recently made a jump in your career. So what are some of the things that I can do if I'm in this space to maximize my chances of landing a good role, given the current job market is pretty challenging and competitive? And B, landing not just a role, but the best role possible for myself. So how do I differentiate myself versus other folks in the market to land the most premium or the best job possible?
Yeah, got it. Really interesting because I've transitioned a couple of times, especially, and I went through this phase, right, where I was in product management,
Right.
and that's a very lucrative career, but I really wanted to get into content strategy and acquisitions. Now, there are different ways you could go about this, right? It all depends on how your background has been. If your background has been in product management at a media and entertainment firm, then you have some idea of the role. But let's say you come from a bank, you come from like a finance strategy background, which is very different from a content strategy background. But you have this inherent passion and inherent interest for the role. One of the ways to stand out, like one hack that I've used time and time over my career, is sending out cold emails to like quite a few members of the team. I used to bother Rahul a lot with cold emails. I would send him, I had prepared a deck on how exactly Disney Plus Hotstar's content acquisition strategy should be, right? Like, and I had no idea about what content strategy or acquisition means so much, like so deeply at that time.
Sure.
Yeah, so have some proof of work or evidence. Like, if you were to land, let's say, you want to land a product role in an OTT space, maybe create a small deck about saying, hey, I feel this feature could be a little bit better, share some ideas about it and share a few thoughts on it. Like that's one way to stand out. And the second way would be to continuously network with folks in this sector, in the media and entertainment space. Because quite a few of the folks in media, like they'd switch around from like a Sony to Z or a Z to Star, and it's a big world, but turns out that it's a small world only. You'll see similar people over and over again, right? So if you network with these folks, you understand their journeys, how they've cracked into this space, they'll help you.
Got it. Rahul, I'm not sure if you got the question. Let me know if you'd like me to repeat it, but would love your thoughts as well on this particular
Yeah.
thing. Like if I'm
So
seeking a
if
job
you're
today. Yeah.
yeah, if you're going from marketing to marketing, not a big problem. If you're going from finance to content creation, creator business, or the creative side of the business, I would say three things are important. One, be sure you want to do it, right? Before you jump into it at a certain age, at a 30s, maybe mid 30s, early 30s kind of age, get a good mentor, like use services like yours to understand what it takes to do that. It is not easy. It's not like I'll jump off a building one day and it's great fun. Let's see how much fun that is. What goes into being that? How much fun that is. That's one.
Yeah.
Second, be patient. The moment you are impatient, you will crack. So you have to be patient in the creative because you will not get the best jobs. You might be a mid management in a bank, but you will get to probably यार ये tape label कर दो और ये log sheet भर दो. So it's little menial. You have to be a little patient. You will get your chance to prove your mettle, but you have to be patient. Third, as I always say, dude, there's no door which cannot be broken. Keep knocking at the door will break.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's beautifully put. Thanks for sharing that, Rahul. I think a lot of the things that you said can probably apply to other types of careers where people are making drastic shifts, but I think that makes sense. And Mahesh, any thoughts that you would like to share on this particular
No,
question?
I think both of them have covered everything. There There was only one thing that I would have added is prepare case studies when you're pitching, when you're presenting uh, your candidature or your interest to a certain role. The
Mm-hmm.
first thing that any hiring manager or any interviewer look is how strong you are a fit for this role. So the best way to answer is, why do you consider yourself the best candidate for this role? So
Right.
how effectively you answer that question, that starts that engagement with the team or with the concerned organization. And as Rahul and Prabhat said, you need to be patient. You need to start taking everything and anything that is coming your way in order to reach your final goal. So I don't want us or any of the new or budding guys to ring fence their ask only for a specific role, otherwise they don't want to get it. I myself, as an example, I was doing varied set of roles and
Yeah.
finally landed here. So the moment you say that no, this is not my job, the doors will close. So
Yeah.
as Rahul said, you keep banging the doors, but at the same time, you should not yourself close the doors.
Yeah, no, makes sense. Just one clarification there, Mahesh. So would you say like this, the kind of pitches or strategy decks or whatever that Prabhat was also referring to? Now, that's something that most of the employers and hiring managers don't explicitly ask for in job
Yeah,
applications or JDs, right? They don't always say, hey, create a free pitch deck for me and then let me see
that's
what I
the
can use. Yeah.
that's the differentiating point. You asked what,
Yeah.
how can you differentiate yourself?
Yeah.
Something that is not asked, if you present, then obviously the differentiation starts.
So
So
you're saying like take your
that's,
own initiative to build something
yeah,
like that, right? And
correct.
keep sharing it
Most,
with people in the companies and
yeah.
industry. Yeah.
Yeah, one example I can say is I've received a lot of, because we keep hiring candidates for Prime Video. I still remember when we were interviewing for a couple of open positions, there was a candidate who sent a video introduction. So that was something that people really liked it, right?
Yeah.
Instead of reading a CV, all you need to do is download a MOV file and watch that 30 seconds, I think 45 seconds of his introduction, very
Yeah.
neat, succinctly presented, and that created that thing that, okay, at least let's give him a chance to come present his case to us or sit for the interview. So something that you can differentiate, you will stand out from the crowd. And how effectively you differentiate is depends on your creative skills, right? When you
Yeah.
want to come into a creative industry, you need to be creative,
Yeah.
or you need to at least show that interest and appetite to be creative.
Right. Right. Got it. I think we are coming up on the close of this particular session, but I think there's just one or two questions that we have just gotten. So if it's okay with the speakers, can we just cover them in the next 2 minutes and then wrap up? That's good with
Yeah,
you?
that's fine. That's fine.
Perfect. Great.
That's
Thanks
fine.
so much. So I think Prabhat actually would like your view on this. So Sam has a question with regard to job search, right? And it's kind of the points that have been discussed recently with all three of you. She's asking, what's the right ratio of kind of networking versus applying through portals if you're seeking a new role in this industry? It seems like the M&E space and OTT space rely less on the traditional job portal methods compared to other industries. So should one primarily focus on networking to land a role in this space?
No, no, I don't think that's true. Like traditional media companies as well as startups in the media and entertainment sector, like
Yeah,
they aggressively post on LinkedIn for various jobs and they are looking out for hundreds of applications.
got it.
So it's not an either or question, I'd say, Sam. Like focus on both
Yeah,
because it's just about maximizing your luck surface area.
right.
You post through the application, you have a certain amount of luck involved there. You connect with a person who's working at the company who might refer you. There will be a certain amount of luck there. You write to the hiring manager saying that you're really interested in that role. There'll be a certain luck involved there. So just
Yeah,
like keep trying to add up as many lucky chances as you can, and you'll eventually land that role, right?
got it. So it's
And of
not a
course, like
binary
get
question per
guidance.
se,
Yeah,
either
it's not
or
a
like
Yeah.
binary. Yeah.
got it. Yeah. Mahesh, Rahul, do you want to add anything on this one?
No, I think he aptly presented. It's not always one mode of, uh, pipeline that we look at. There's always the executive search. There's always the referrals that we get, and
Yeah.
at the same time, people applying through the job portal. So we don't like. I believe any company won't fixate on one set of pipeline. It's, we always fixate on the right candidate for that role.
Okay.
So the pipeline or the input, the mechanism of reaching out to that particular role doesn't really bother.
Got it. Would you say like referrals have heavier weightage or carry a heavier weightage if the people have been referred internally by an existing employee at the firm?
Definitely, at least in my experience, I've seen people giving first preference to referrals because we already know the person who is referring, right? So I know
Right.
if someone who is referring me a particular candidate, I can vouch for that candidate. So
Sure.
there's a credibility aspect that gets added to it, which allows the profile to move slightly upper in the pipeline. So
Yeah.
that's the only advantage I see. Otherwise, it all depends on the merit of the candidate, but the the advantage of having a referral is it adds credibility that okay, somebody who's already working, who knows Amazon culture or who knows the company's culture is watching for this candidate. Why can't we give it a try?
Got it.
And,
And
and
Rahul,
Arjun, what happens is if you're a hiring manager, no matter at what level, the hiring manager doesn't always take the decision. It's always multi departments who do interviews. So yes, it's a little bit of an advantage, but it's not the. Don't think if you get referred, you will get hired.
Yeah.
That's
sure.
my logic because
Yeah,
you
it may
have
increase
to
your probability a little bit, but it's not a given that.
slightly. I don't. It's huge. Also slightly.
Okay, got it. Got it. And last question that we have here is from Sakshi, and I think maybe Rahul, you can also opine on this. So,
Yeah.
what's the best way to pitch content on to OTT platforms if you're going for, she said, commission model? So, who do you typically approach? How do you actually pitch content if you're especially a new creator in the space?
I'll give you a very honest answer. Okay. If you look at any OTT, they do maximum commission 10 to 15 shows a year, right?
Right.
If you look at any OTT, I'm talking about the top four OTTs: Hotstar, Netflix, Amazon, and Geo. They only do 10 to 15 shows, originals which they commission, not what they acquire or license. Keeping that aside. So everybody is doing a job. Who do they want? They want the safest guys to make it for them. Who do they want you to make it for? The Karan Johars of the world or the Excels of the world or whoever is the big non producer. Not only for that, you might have a great concept, but execution from paper to execution changes in a massive way. So my recommendation to people like Sakshi, if you have great concepts, first register those concepts, right? And so that you have your own rights because nobody can take it from you and so on and so forth. Then every company today are looking for writers. India doesn't have writers at all. It's if you have 100 shows, only 10 writers are writing. So if you're a writer, you will create a job. So collaborate with the top guys because that gives you the best chance of that show seeing the light of day.
Understood.
So that's what. So don't go knocking on a cold email. You will not be taken seriously.
Yeah. I mean, it's different from job search, right? This is where you're pitching content first.
Very
It's
different.
Yeah. Okay, I think we have covered everything. I'm sure Prabhat, Mahesh, generally your thoughts would be aligned with what Rahul has shared here, I'm guessing. So I think that brings us to a close of today's session. And I think it was very insightful. I don't know what you all thought. Obviously, you're biased since you were the speakers, but I think you did a fantastic job of answering all the questions very head on. It was, no sugarcoating, no kind of trying to just motivate people. It was giving it like it is. And that's always helpful. I think that's what most people who come to us are looking for, right? Like real time insights, which can help them make more informed decisions and then maximize their chances of achieving success in their career. So thank you so much for everybody who joined today. And obviously the three speakers, Mahesh, Rahul, Prabhat, thank you so much for your time.